Okay. We start the second assembly. A minute. United States, do you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Shall we start? Everyone, every state will present in 3 minutes or 4 minutes its position, understanding, complaints, whatever. I think United States, maybe you start at NATO. NATO, Secretary of NATO, you'll be the second, okay? Good. United States, what, or you want to, okay. You can tell us 3 minutes what happened to you.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. First of all, the United States had some technical difficulties. We found out that the White House and the Pentagon was attacked. So for several minutes, we were unable to communicate with our friends and allies. But the United States very much initially wanted to get more situational awareness to understand the nature of the threats. We worked very closely with our allies to just exchange information and to learn more about the nature of the threat. As the situation has evolved, we've offered assistance and to reassure allies that we stand fully behind them. For the United States, it's very important that countries do not take unilateral actions, but that the response is a multilateral one that is coordinated through NATO and coordinated with our allies and partners. So we have urged countries to pursue a collective response through NATO. I know that NATO is working on producing a joint statement. There's also discussion in NATO around invoking Article 5 in response to these events. The US is cooperating very closely with our allies on this. So we are pursuing a collective response here. We also urge countries such as Russia and China to be partners, to not take unilateral actions, but to be partners and to coordinate any activities with the NATO alliance. So from a US point of view, the collective response is essential in responding to these terror events.
Thank you. Secretary of NATO and EU.
Well, although Norway hasn't been hit yet by ISIS, we are, and following our talks with President Obama a few days ago, we think it's time to start with a more proactive approach, a collective defense approach against ISIS, both in Europe and in Syria, Iraq, and Libya. Not all our members share the same concerns. I think it represents what country has been hit harder and how much they're willing to join this collective effort, but I think that's where we're going. Meanwhile, we deployed all our quick reaction forces, very high quick reaction forces and special operations forces in Europe, both to try and secure the border in Turkey and assist all the efforts in Portugal and the continent.
Thank you. Portugal?
Yeah, our view of the events, we start to have some problems at the local level with minor events, but after some time, some major transportation infrastructure problems, which has been, we have some level of impact. But at this point, we don't have still a critical situation that may cause an alarm, public alarm. We have been being keen to, from the political point of view, ensuring that the political institutions are closely following the situation, and we believe that at this moment there is no need for further political alarm. But at the European cooperation platforms, we believe that we are lagging behind what is needed. The first, and basically because considering three major points. The first is a lack of intelligence exchange regarding that will be enough or we required for solving the attribution problem. We still don't know who is behind these attacks. There is no consensus at all. So we don't know because we believe we have some hints, some information that leads to our attacks. Maybe ISIS may be behind, but it's not. We ask for NATO and our allies for some information exchange. We had no answer to that. At least an answer saying we don't know. We don't have further information. So I think that this is the first point. The second point is, which is basically following the first, it lacks some coordination, and this is not a criticism for our friends from NATO office, but it really requires some level of coordination regarding some requests that NATO and non-NATO allies have been and very stressed in a very strong positions from Turkey or Russia. We believe that we require a stronger coordination position from NATO and more interaction within the partners and the EU as well. The third is we have already, after 24 hours of crisis, we don't have an action plan to respond. So we are just being reactive to events, and we feel from our point of view that we still don't know what to do regarding the big picture, regarding what Europe, and if there is, by the way, we try to slow down a possible escalate that the events may lead. So we believe that this is a critical issue. And we felt that in some time this escalate could happen. So basically, these are our learnings, our what we learn, understand from the situation at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Portugal. Turkey. We are not giving to Turkish guys.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me tell you that I'm very disappointed of what is going on here. Our allies in NATO, they are not even capable of taking a joint political statement, even for condemning or even for cooperating with Turkey. Turkish soldiers, 32 Turkish soldiers were killed inside Turkey. We were attacked by ISIS. Our intelligence sources, we do basically confirm that it was ISIS. And now we expect from all world to stand next to us and to fight against the ISIS. And secondly, also the Russian embassy in Ankara was targeted. In just last year and even a few months ago, ISIS again targeted our capital in Ankara and also Istanbul, and we all know that they never claimed any responsibility. So we all know that according to our own intelligence sources that this is ISIS and they should be punished. We expect from NATO a joint political statement. Otherwise, let me tell you frankly, Turkish people know how to behave, Turkish people know how to defend themselves, and we, I assume, already proved ourselves with the recent developments that took place in the aerial space of our country. You know that how we retaliate and how do we react when our borders are violated. And in this case, our borders are violated and we know how to defend ourselves. Let me tell you something. We already deployed our military, our tanks, our artillery to the Syrian border, and we mean it. If our allies in NATO are not capable of taking a decision, we know to enter Syria to clean this ISIS. Thank you.
Thank you, Turkey.
Can I jump
okay.
the queue? The UK would like to jump the queue.
I wanted Israel, but British before.
Sorry, Israel. Is it okay if we do this jointly? I wanted to respond to Turkey's statement by starting to say, Turkey, the rest of the world is supporting you. We are standing behind you. The lack of a group NATO statement is not a sign of the fact that we do not sympathize with you and that we do not agree with you. The statement we all, and you agreed with us as well, the statement that goes out from NATO, bearing in mind the 2 weeks of events that we have had, needs to be an accurate, concise, and a solution-led statement. This is not one country's public that is going to be watching and listening to this statement. We are going to have millions of people asking us, what exactly does this mean?
1 minute.
Please,
1 minute.
please give me the... Please.
No, 1 minute. No, 1 minute. No, 1 minute. When 32 Turkish mothers are crying, I'm not going to hear what you say. Okay? I want actions. What we are all concerned about is that if we act prematurely, we might well have 50 million people around the world. I want actions against Daesh.
We have had intel that says it is not just Daesh. We had to be 100% certain that this is not just Daesh. The UK recommends that we do a group statement, that we say that countries are taking a coordinated action. No specific country is mentioned at this point in time. What we say is that we are taking a coordinated action. We are investigating as to exactly who is behind this, what are the linkages in all of these events, and regionally, countries are making agreements just so that of the announcements that have already come out about Russia, China agreements, whatever these country agreements are, this is something that we are working as a group to have different regions tackling different parts of this problem.
Prove that you're sincere. Prove that you're sincere.
I'm looking to the group.
I want a political statement.
I'm looking to the group to support this statement. The UK concurs with the US's point that we need to start intelligence sharing. We can do this intelligence sharing through these regional agreements. We need to, as a group, that's the action plan, to decide who is looking at what. We cannot all be looking at all areas of the problem. We are going to fall over each other. We're wasting resources doing that. We need to agree between us. Those are the actions that I would suggest here. NATO feels as that NATO agrees with that. I also think that and I've sent out a message to all of the countries to say this. I think these attacks, the 34 Turkish soldiers, the 34 trucks...
They are not 32. Statistics,
apologies.
They are our soldiers.
Turkey, apologies. Yeah. Apologies for getting the numbers incorrect.
Please.
But they
are not numbers, they are our soldiers.
The various attacks that are occurring, I think, are a decoy. Do we want to escalate this to World War III without being 100% certain?
Then we want your sympathy. My lady.
You have my sympathy. You
Not
have
your
my
sympathy.
support.
I want the sympathy of NATO. I want
you
complete...
Have.
No. I want to hear that from NATO General Secretary.
Well, I open that out.
Not from you, David.
Call me Dave.
Dave, okay, Dave. And call me Tayyip.
I would suggest that I would ask the people around this table, as enforced and supervised by NATO, to take a view, to do a group statement to say this is a coordinated effort on both how to the actions as well as the intelligence sharing, and we will come back to you with time as to exactly what those details are. And for the national security of all of the countries involved, we do not wish to divulge that information at this point.
My troops is waiting for my command. We are not patient. Turkish mothers are not patient.
If we reach a decision today, we can have an action plan that will give you the answer that you require. I'm conscious I've taken over the microphone. I open this up to my Israeli colleagues to...
It's okay. Thank you. Thank you. Now you can kiss each other. Israel.
I know. Okay. This was a demonstration of cyber attack. All right. First of all, I have to say that despite the fact that there were a minor physical attack in Europe, Israel already is under both simultaneously physical attack as well as cyber attack. Okay. And for that reason, we actually declared an emergency situation in Israel because of what was happening already up to now in Israel. That's one thing. The other thing is we are taking all the precautions and we are doing all the preparation to react. As mentioned, reacting on a physical level, mainly we are under a massive rocket attack from Gaza. We are doing what we have to do, and actually we have a good simulation from our past experience in the last 10 years. So this is what we are. We left it, to our defense minister to do what he has to do. Now, the nature of the cyber attack already was done against Israel forced us to do the following. First of all, we directed the civilians to minimize as much as possible using any computers and especially connection with the internet system or any other international communication because we have to reduce as much as possible to be less vulnerable. This was one thing that we had to do. The other thing that we had to do was, again, internally, to prepare ourselves, we prioritize the threat and the chances of the attack from national assets into commercial assets and down to private assets, and we have already given the proper directions into each level what to do and how to prepare itself, even if the situation will be worse than it is today. Now, our problem was when it goes down to professional analysis, our experts were telling us, first of all, that obviously the Daesh or the ISIS capabilities are not as big as a threat which would come from a nation level. Although at the beginning we were thinking that they do not have even any capability against any cyber capability, but later on we realized that it is possible, and even some of the attacks, the source of some of the attacks was ISIS. That's one thing. The other thing is that we do believe that the highest threat is if an attack will come from a state. So we directed our expertise to focus on that and to try to do the utmost, although we know that this is almost impossible, to do the utmost by different ways, not necessarily through technical channels, but also all kind of intelligence resources to try and figure out where the threat is coming from. And for that, we proposed to participate in international effort, highest priority, and first of all, to figure out, if not yet been done, what is the potential of attack from any specific country. For us as Israelis, we believe that if there is a chance, maybe the highest chance might be Iran, but not necessarily. Okay, so this is what we have decided. For that reason, we propose to all participants, Europe, United States, and other countries which are part of the game, to cooperate, and more than that, to set immediately a professional committee to sit down and try to figure out where the threat is coming from. Stage number 2 was to figure out what to do. Let's say that we do figure from which country the threat is coming from. Then I think that our next level, this should be cooperated also between the allies, is what to do. Because either professionally what to do in the cyber level, but if we have no way to react on the cyber level, maybe we should consider a physical attack against this country. This is early stage to do anything, but to try and make the analysis as well as an international discussion. This is very important to do it right now. Our very bad experience in our country was if you don't prepare yourself on time, then the threat comes and you have no lead time to react, so you better be prepared. Now, in regard to the minor argument that was around the table here, well, this is our government opinion is the following. ISIS is a major global threat, being yesterday, before yesterday, it is today, and it will be tomorrow. We know the effort which is been taken internationally to respond to ISIS aggressiveness so far, in the last year especially, but after doing this, what they have done today and yesterday, either physical attack or cyber attack, we do believe that we have to focus and to react and to respond as soon as possible. However, it doesn't mean that it needs to be across the table at this very early stage. I believe that those countries around Iraq and Iran, together with Russia, and Iraq and Syria, excuse me, together with Russia, Iran, and minor participation from the European country, if you focus on that, you resume the attack, it might be enough for this stage, but we have to prepare for a wider reaction. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Yes, England, you are very,
They are very active.
very active.
They are not active on going any kind of...
Just talking.
Just talking.
Go. But you have half a minute. Germany afterwards.
Guys, I've got 30 seconds. Please don't take my airtime. One statement that came to me based on the Israeli statement. If ISIS is going for D-Day, this presents an opportunity for us. If they are going all out today, of all days, if we handle this properly, we could take them out completely. We could turn this around and make this their worst nightmare if we do this properly. I would love to say that the UK could do that on its own, in isolation. I would be lying. I'd love to say that NATO could do it in isolation. I would love to have confidence in saying that. I think if we all did it, we could possibly put this problem to an end permanently. It's not that we do not wish to take action. I want to take the right action that completely annihilates ISIS forever. And I do not have confidence that the action that is being suggested so far is that solution. Present me with that solution and I'll put both my hands up and say, let's go for it.
Now, before Germany will continue, Portugal, you want to say something?
Yes, just a simple comment. I fully agree with what Israel and UK have said. That this is the attribution problem is the first condition has to be met before we can develop an action plan, an effective action plan. But as in many things in life and in diplomacy and in conflict management, the devil is in the details. So, and the problem here is how to establish a cooperation platform in order to exchange information, come to a conclusion, solve the attribution problem, and act accordingly. That's how to do that in practice. That's what we see in general, that we just may be around and around in bureaucratic and formal arguments and shields, and nothing happened. And at the end of the day, the time is, the clock is ticking. We don't have anything. The work is not done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Germany.
Thanks. Let me be succinct. In responding first to the UK, I find it quite refreshing and a departure from the way the United Kingdom has been handling its foreign and defense policy, because the UK was among those countries who will always go it alone. see the way that the UK and France have reacted in Libya without waiting for anyone, neither the EU nor a United Nations Security Council nor a European one, and decided that it is in their national interest. So if what we hear now is a departure from the traditional way, we can only support it, because I think that the UK, also in view of the referendum that is coming up, is thinking about leaving institution instead of joining and going it alone. So that's only for the record. As far as Germany is concerned, I think that since Germany was attacked physically as well as cyber-wise, we have taken at the national level the measures to beef up security, trying to find out more information regarding who stands behind it. So I think that nationally we have taken most of the steps that one has to take in order to, first of all, secure our population. I would second both the United States as well as the Portuguese in saying that, in fact, so far, the Europeans have not learned neither the lessons of Brussels nor the lessons of France in terms of trying to come up with a common approach. And a common approach means to take all measures, first of all, to understand the nature of the threat, to get much more intelligence, and then to make a political decision at the European level. And by the way, I'm missing here a EU also address, because we have only a NATO, and I would think that there is also a need for a EU address as we are proceeding with the simulation. So yes, at the national level, we have taken all necessary measures, but I'm missing, as Germany, a common approach. And by saying that, may I also add that I didn't find very helpful the threats and the ultimatums which have been expressed by Turkey. Turkey is not known for also falling in line with the common, and as much as I have empathy with the 32 families, I think that we should not take decisions based on emotions, but based on common interest. And that is something which Turkey needs, all of us, and we need also Turkey. So it is only a common response that can help us deal with a common threat.
That's why we ask for a political statement.
Fine.
Okay, then do it.
Chaim,
Thank you. What? Yeah, Israel, a comment?
If I understand correctly, this scenario have started by surprise, right? I mean, this scenario, the whole game started by surprise, right? Okay, again, we have a very traumatic experience, by being attacked by surprise. I can tell you one thing. When you are attacked by surprise, that's one thing. And the other thing is that the nature of this kind of war is not a long turnaround and a long preparation for every wave of attack. The other side can by pushing the button to attack you. So we have no time to wait too much. I mean, we need to cooperate. We need to think to do what to do when, and the major reaction. But we have to start right now, on the ground as well as in cyber. Otherwise, and remember one thing: every minute, every hour which is over, our situation, our ability to react, becoming even worse. Because I can tell you that if 50% or 20% or 10% of my command and control system will be under attack, then my efficiency will drop down 80%. So it's better to react as soon as possible, yet to coordinate as much as possible.
Thank you. France.
Yes, thank you very much. So I think we would love to have the bandwidth to wait for consensus over attribution and common action, but we have been under attack, and as far as we're concerned, D-Day has started in France. We've been victim of cyber attacks and physical attacks, so we have to work on some kind of response right away to our first priority before responding and before thinking about striking Syria or whatever is to prevent further attacks and to catch the terrorists that are still running around. The threat in France is not only outside, which is why I have some doubts about the fact that we can take out ISIS on that occasion, because we have quite a few thousand people who are on their way to radicalization and are likely to be influenced by ISIS propaganda. So part of the response and the strategic response of France is in preventing further attacks is to counter the influence in order to stop ISIS recruitment to commit more suicide attacks and more physical attacks in the country, because what ISIS is doing is calling from all kinds of people to conduct all kinds of attacks everywhere around the territory. The other thing is, based on the intelligence reports that we got earlier, we put a great emphasis on trying to identify the IP address that could be at the origin of the botnet in order to prevent DDoS attacks especially against our government infrastructures, and to protect our critical infrastructures in order to avoid further damage. But of course, we also had to call for the state of emergency and make sure that people stayed home in the wake of the attacks. And in order to do that, I mean, we've developed a response which involves countering the influence. We asked for help from Great Britain and from the US in first sending out the message that maybe the video, I mean, raising doubts about the authenticity of the video, which had not been officially authenticated, and in order to slow down the process of recruitment by ISIS. We also asked help for a video floating strategy in order to send out more messages and decrease the importance of that video calling for action. We tried to get help from the social networks, but apparently they're not playing. We couldn't find who was playing for the social networks because we needed their cooperation. On the one hand, on blocking the original video, but also in allowing our flooding strategy and other aspects. We asked for help also for tracking the terrorists and securing our country. So, of course, we also asked for help for a joint statement from NATO, but at this point, because of the emergency situation, we could not get involved in the discussions about that. And again, our top priority right now for this day was to stop the attack and catch the terrorists, and we'll think about a response against ISIS in the second time. Thank you.
Thank you, France. China, a moment. US, if you want to say something, raise your hand. Okay. You hear me?
Say something even though we have a prime minister.
Okay. He want you. You want? So a moment. US from Washington, Eric. You can talk.
Well, I just want to reiterate that Sure, thank you. I just want to reiterate again that we
we don't hear you. It's under cyber attack. Leo, לא שומעים. This is live, real life. So you will go back later. China.
We in Beijing clearly view the
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Eric, you can wait. Because China was online and we are really have problems with China. Okay, you can wait.
I'm okay. Let's continue.
Okay.
We in China clearly view the recent series of attacks and events with great concern. We welcome, of course, multilateral efforts and approaches to shared threats like that, transnational threats, in fact, of the broadest and in the broadest and most pervasive sense of the word. We think that in order to effectively combat a phenomenon like that, it needs to be inclusive, this sort of approach, and not just regional. It has to be inclusive. Cyber threats span the whole globe, and we ourselves, despite our cyber capabilities, are also subject to threats on a daily basis. We also believe that more than just focusing on the strategic and the military aspects of such an approach, we need to be looking at how to counter ISIS at a broader level, at a more general level. And towards this end, we have been investing in efforts to promote a sense of reconciliation between the Sunnis and the Shias, in the Middle East at least. We believe that so long as this gap persists, any sort of effort directed at trying to suppress ISIS's cyber capabilities and so on are not going to be sustainable. We've done this already with vis-a-vis the Syrian opposition in recent months, and we also want to strongly encourage the Iranians, particularly, and the Iranians have been disinvited, but I speak on, well, they understand this as well clearly. The Iranians and the Arabs, the Saudis rather. We need also strong governments in places that we like to call failed states, and this includes Syria. We need all support that we can to keep the government strong, because these are the ones eventually that are going to be taking this anti-ISIS effort into their own hands, and not somebody from the outside, and certainly not somebody from outside the region. In the longer term, this is going to be necessary, and towards this end again, I think on this we stand with Russia as well. We strongly urge all parties to come again together over the Syrian crisis, to find a way out of that. We also are stepping up our training in the Mediterranean, but also in Greater Eurasia. ISIS is a threat that does not just affect Europe, it affects us as well. We've got several, as you all know, we've got something of a boiling, well, not exactly boiling, but we've got an insurgency in Xinjiang province in China. Hundreds of ISIS fighters are actually from the Chinese nationals, but they're Uyghur Turks. We have our own insurgency problem, so it also affects us. And to this end, along with Russia as well, we have recently taken a series of steps. We do not intend for these to come across as exclusionary or exclusive, but because they directly affect our interests on the continent, and I'll just mention 3 of them. You would have seen also from the press that we're stepping up a lot of our counter-terrorism joint exercises with our partners in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We've also, and this is Russia's proposal, we're creating a specialized cyber unit in the same context, in the context of the SCO. And finally, we think it is also time in the wider context to bring all responsible governments together to combat a phenomenon such as ISIS. We need all hands on board. And we've decided in this connection also to bring Iran, to invite Iran into the SCO, into the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We've initiated proceedings, and we believe that Iran can play a key role, a vital role in combating ISIS, whether kinetically or cybernetically. Lastly, we think that clearly cyber defense, the cyber threat is an important, cyber is an important threat, But we cannot afford to lose sight of actual kinetic terrorist attacks, and this is what IS has been specialized in. And especially from our recent summit with the US, where I spoke to President Obama, the white President Obama, about the specific threat of nuclear terrorism. I think it's real, it's here and now, it's clear and present.
Thank you, Chairman. Russia, can you wait for a moment to US? Yes, Eric, we are with you now. Eric?
Well, thank you. I just want to again reiterate our support to our allies in Turkey, and we certainly agree with China that we need multilateral solutions to this and not unilateral solutions. So that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Russia.
Well, Russia calls for real and strong solutions to this attack. We welcome the comments made by the UK, by Israel, and by China. We came under direct attack physically and cyber-wise, but our people remain strong. We have a new commissioner for counterterrorism, President Ramzan Kadyrov of Chechnya, and he was able to create real solutions to the security problems that we're facing. We called all countries to join Russia to cooperate and to secure the people of the world, and we were happy that we established real and viable cooperation with important allies such as China and Iran. And our dear Chinese friend just said our solutions to the Eurasian sphere that we've achieved through agreements on enlarging the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We also agree with them that we see the solution in Syria as an integral part of fighting this terrorist menace, and we call Western countries to stop supplying weapons to the rebels in the Syrian war and encourage the rebels to speak to President Assad, the legitimate leadership of Syria, to speak to him and come together. This is the only solution to fighting ISIS. Unfortunately, there was those who tried to divide us. We didn't get a positive response from NATO for cooperation on this issue, which we see as a global issue. This was very, very unfortunate. And we would not stand aside on this issue. And Russia will ensure its stability in our country and in our wider region, no matter what.
Thank you. Mr. Ben-Shapot, did you want to say something?
I very briefly would like to ask myself questions. We started with a chain bus accidents in France with a level of alert in Portugal. We added, instead of responding to a certain scenario from the outside, exogenous forces, we started what the French call surenchère. We tried to elevate the stakes by getting the Israel Central Bank hacked, by elevating the level of alert to 2, 3, and I'm just wondering if the duty of the panels here is to create scenarios of their own, to exacerbate and complicate things, or to address a simple question. What is happening outside? How does this relate to us? If it does relate, are we prepared to do anything about it? And how should we ensure preparedness? The fact that Russia is a stakeholder, that it pretends that it is highly involved, is an excuse for the Chechens that go to Syria and go back in their own community in Russia. So Russia has many reasons to be in Syria, coming back to play a major role, having bases, and internal security, the Chechens, etc. China follows suit, emulates almost, and suggests that by coming to the Mediterranean, it's going to address the ISIS question. First of all, you have a major Muslim community in China. ISIS is not an entity, it's a franchise. you cannot stifle ISIS. Your franchise would be the dissatisfied Muslims in China and not ISIS in Syria. So I'm just wondering if we are talking on the same level, the same plane. I have a feeling that we're missing the boat here. The Crusaders do not involve China or Russia. The Crusaders have not been able until now to get together and get their act together. So somebody suggested, let's have a statement. By whom? Who are the stakeholders? So the question is really that we should rethink this game and try to prepare ourselves beforehand to know what the division of labor is, really, not do it ad hoc on the spot. Then address the question of internal homeland security, external relations, and in the higher level, international cooperation. And I find that we're failing on all three levels. These are not just levels, they are interrelated, very intimately interrelated. So we must have a very cohesive conversation within and between the stakeholders. I haven't seen that so far, and I hope we'll get to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Yata, you have to say something? You want to say something? Nothing happened to you. You're safe.
Yeah, nothing to add. We offer our member airlines to help them to share communication, but this is the only thing that we can do.
Thank you. And Secretary of NATO, you want to say something?
Let me try and make several clarifications as to things that are happening here. NATO sees the issue now on four trends or four levels. One is stabilizing the continent. I think border control, biometrics, refugees, the humanitarian crisis, everyone can agree on that it's a mutual effort that should be taken as a continent and not individually as a country. And I think we agree on that and we can move operationally on that. The ISIS or ISIS-inspired events, we also talked during the last day with some of our potential partners in some silent talks that are not parts of NATO, and I think we can move operationally on that level as well. As far as the cyber attacks are concerned, or cyber, let's call it the combo attacks of ISIS and cyber together, this is much more problematic. NATO doesn't see eye to eye with China, Russia, Iran, and its allies, and therefore I think silent measures will be taken there more than actual measures. The last point I want to make, as far as Portugal's remark, we don't need more platforms, we just need better cooperation. There are enough bodies, platforms, and laws that we just need to apply.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think because we have an imminent danger, we've been focusing on managing the crisis, but I fully agree that this is not going to be enough to solve the ISIS problem. And what we're trying to do is just try to stop the attacks for today, but if we really want to manage the ISIS problem, I doubt that the military solution, even with a lot of cooperation, is going to be enough. I mean, we have the external threat, and yes, there is a need for cooperation at the international level to counter that threat, but there is definitely the insider threat, and the question we have to ask is about the roots of this threat, and why do we have, in so many countries, kids turning against their own nation and using the franchise of ISIS? And I think there needs to be a lot more international cooperation in academic research in order to understand that trend and bring solutions. And right now, I think we're really short on solutions about this.
Last one, Secretary of State Foreign Affairs in Israel.
Oh. So I just want to offer, we keep on focusing on the state-based system against an organization that, even though it calls itself a state, does not operate like a state. So everything we will put together as states is by definition ineffective. it doesn't, I mean, there's no need for intelligence, there's no need for research. They're making it very clear who they are, they're assuming responsibility, and they're calling on people to attack. So it's not about plans, it's not about intelligence. People are going to attack because they're inspired by the idea. So we have to counter with our ideas, not just with organizations. Sorry. Our organizations are never going to be up for the task because we operate on a state-based system. So I believe we need to counter their idea with our ideas, with our propaganda. We need to issue videos, calls to our citizens, to people, to rise. If they know something about someone who's planning an attack, this is the time for parents to stop their children, for neighbors to report on suspicious activity. This is time for people to take action. This is time for us to remind the world what Israel stands for, what Europe stands for, what the United States stands for, to remind them that we stand for liberal, open ideals. We need to have Muslim leaders who will go on the internet, who will go on videos, who will speak to these young people to call them to another version, another interpretation of Islam. And all the effort we're expending in discussing how to cooperate among states and intelligence, it's all nice and well, but ultimately we have to defeat this ideologically.
Yes, Russia, last one. We need to go to the second, 30 seconds.
Well, the question is, how can you confront an organization that targets Russia without including Russia in the solution? I mean, Russia is the only country that was proactive enough to create real solutions to these problems and had real plans, real political and military plans to counter this threat. And yet, the West insists on keeping Russia outside the structures that will tackle the problem. And this is the real weakness of the response to ISIS.
Thank you. Yeah. 20 seconds.
Can I just ask Israel that if we do put out this national call to all countries, can I just ask the Israeli team that if we do put out this call to everybody to send us this information, will the Israeli state be prepared to roll through the gazillion, billion amounts of data that is going to be sent to you from around the world? If you're happy to do that, I'm happy to condone that solution. That's solution number one. NATO mentioned several others. Everybody stick your hands up as to what they want to do.
Okay, we finish now. We have news. No, sit down. We have news. We have news. Dramatic news. I think Destiny.
Intelligence reports based on captured terrorist cellular phone indicate planned attacks in a few hours on nuclear facilities in the United States and Russia. Nuclear power plants have been shut down in the United Kingdom, Portugal, and France.
That's all?
Yes.
This is the real attack.
Go. We will explain it.
This is the
in a
real
minute.
attack.
We are in our last, in the second session.